In this session, we're going to go straight into the practice itself because the practice will be the best way of explaining what I want to talk about. And that is why we aren't able to just occupy the space between an impulse and a reaction. So we've talked um, already about sensations that arise in the body and how those sensations cause us to act in certain ways. If we feel a nice sensation, we might feel much calmer and react much more wisely. But if we feel an unpleasant sensation, we might react a bit more spontaneously and maybe in a negative way. But whatever way you look at it, we always seem to act from a place of reaction to a sensation. So in this practice, we're going to look at why we can't just rest with these waves of sensations that come through. When we sit down to do our meditation, we sit there for a minute, we sit there for 2 minutes if we're lucky, and probably a few seconds, and we feel a boredom or an impulse to move the mind or move the body or do something. Um, what is that boredom? What is that irritation? Why can we not just let it wash through us and just allow it to be there? Why do we have to act on it? That's what we're going to look at in this practice. So, as ever, make yourself as comfortable as possible. You can be sitting up, you can have your back against the wall, you can lie down if you want to, but just be aware that you probably fall asleep. And the first thing we're going to do is just check in with our body, our mind, our breath right now. Just notice what's going on for us today. You might notice that your breath is smooth, your body feels fairly at rest, fairly calm. Or you may notice that everything feels a bit agitated, a little bit unsettled, or anywhere along that spectrum. Don't try to change it in any way. See if you can just notice it and observe it. Then we're just going to take a few steadying breaths just to ground ourselves. You don't have to think of the breath, you could just think of the sound. Focus on the sound of the breath or focus on the ribs moving. But just take 5 nice slow breaths down from 5 to 0. And with each one, just see if you can settle and drop into what you're experiencing. So there's nothing to do, it's really just a letting go. And what we might notice almost immediately is that this boredom appears, or this feeling of movement, needing to act, needing to do something. But instead of feeling frustrated or irritated by that, which is our normal response, or acting on it, which is what we generally do, see if you can just let that feeling of boredom wash over you. And after it washes over you, there might be a moment of stillness. Maybe a little space in which there's just silence, no irritation, no boredom. You can enjoy that. And then before you know it, there's another wave. And you might experience this in a very different way to me. I feel this boredom or this irritation as a sort of flood of sensation in my shoulders, my upper chest, my neck, and then up to my head. And it's quite subtle, like a sort of tingling, or it's hard to explain really. But it's not a hugely powerful sensation. It's just powerful enough to feel uncomfortable in some way. But for you, it might be somewhere completely different. It might be in your tummy, your back, your lower body, your hips, could be anywhere. But it will be fairly easy to identify because they come in these waves. There will be a space, just like the waves on the sea, where the sea is still and calm. And then without any warning, the wave of boredom, frustration, anxiety, or whatever you label it as, just appears and it washes through the body. And it normally just comes before we start thinking about something or before we become distracted. What tends to happen is that just like on the ocean, there's a period of calm or stillness, and then there's a little series of waves, one after the other. So just notice when those sets appear. Try not to fight against them or act upon them or resist them. You can't fight the ocean. But notice how the sensation in your body changes after the waves have washed through. And you're left with the stillness. And when the stillness re-emerges or reappears, just sink yourself into it. Rest back in it. Enjoy it. But know that it's just the nature of the ocean that sooner or later another wave will appear. And you might imagine yourself as a stone on the beach, one of those pebbly beaches. And the nature of the stones or the pebbles is to be still. Their nature isn't to move, jump around. The nature of a stone or a pebble is just to be at rest. But sure enough, when those waves hit the beach, those pebbles get thrown around, moved. But the pebbles don't try to fight the waves or stop the waves. That would be pointless. And our practice of meditation shouldn't be like that either. We don't need to stop the waves of impatience or boredom or irritation. It's just their nature to arise and wash over us. So when they come, rather than fighting them or trying to not experience the boredom, or quickly distracting yourself with a thought because it feels unpleasant, just let them be experienced. Fully experience the waves, knowing that sooner or later you'll be put back down to rest again. You might start to see that that state of being at rest or being still is actually your fundamental nature or your underlying nature, just like it is for the stone. It's not that we have to somehow uncover the stillness or find spaciousness or quiet. The spaciousness, the silence, and the stillness is the underlying fabric that all of our experience appears on or within. The waves are just temporary and brief disturbances or distractions. We don't have to go looking for the silence again. It's already there. We just ride out the distractions Ride out the waves of boredom. And after they pass, you'll naturally just return to that stillness. We don't need to cling on to the stillness. We don't need to be anxious about the next wave of boredom flooding through, because we know the nature of waves is to come and go. No wave ever lasted forever. They break and then they dissipate or vanish back into the ocean of stillness. And when we see this clearly, all of our anxiety will just melt away. There won't be the need to hold on to the silence or to push away the waves of boredom or anxiety. So just rest with this practice for the next minute. Now gently notice your breath. Just bring your attention back to your breath. It might be all but forgotten, but there it is, just ticking away, doing its job. You don't have to start any struggle or clinging to silence or fighting boredom. Just notice the breath and let it gradually fill your body again. Maybe take in 4 or 5 breaths up from 0. Each breath just filling your body, and you maybe start to find a little bit of movement or a stretch. Maybe rubbing your hands together, maybe rubbing your face, noticing the floor underneath you, space around you in the room. And when you feel ready, without any need to rush, just allowing your eyes to open completely and giving yourself a few moments just to readjust, because sometimes we can just wake up as if we've woken from a deep sleep. But see if you can take some of these moments of stillness and acceptance into the day with you. When you notice those waves of frustration, impatience, or boredom appearing. Just let them wash through, knowing that underneath there's always this fabric of stillness and calm. I hope that's useful.